All right, let's talk about this Dallas Cowboys and Seattle Seahawks game that happened on Thursday Night Football of Week 13 this season. If you did not know, I am a Cowboys fan. I'm sure, delusional like the rest of us, but I like to think I keep it relatively objective as much as a fan can. I don't think I get too optimistic at times, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what everyone thinks. I'm going to talk about, this is my first Cowboys game reaction that I've published. So we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to try to stay level headed and not get ahead of myself, but let's just dive into it a little bit. The first thing I want to talk about is when I was doing my week 13 predictions, I mentioned that, this game was pretty much a must win for Dallas. They haven't beaten any good team this season. They only played two good teams. They lost to both of them, but they hadn't beaten a team with a winning record yet. And that's obviously been the biggest knock against them. They've been blowing out the bad teams, but they just aren't beating anyone good. Granted, they've only played two teams with a winning record, and they competed in that Philly game. Like, I actually came away from that game feeling okay. I obviously wish we would have won. I would have felt much better if we did, but it wasn't like the Niners game where I left just feeling demoralized after losing by like 100. So, we've only played two good teams. We lost both of them. I don't know if Seattle is good, but they have a winning record. They were 6-5 going into this game. So it was a game we just had to win. We had to beat a team with a winning record, especially with our upcoming schedule. Our next four games are Philly, Buffalo, Detroit, and Miami. Those are four not only teams with a winning record, but really good teams. And I know Buffalo is 6-6 or whatever they are, but we know Buffalo has a good team. We know they have potential. We know they've underperformed this year. That's still going to be a really tough game to play. And going into that stretch of those four games to end the year, we play Washington the last game of the season, but that's not going to matter. These next four games matter. And this game coming before that, we just had to win. They had to get a win going into December. And obviously they did. So that's great. They won 41-35. It was a ridiculously high scoring game. There was an absurd amount of penalties. There was like 260 yards-ish total in penalties in the game. And they were pretty even. Like, both teams had almost 130. I think the Cowboys did have 130 and Seattle had 127. Amongst those penalties, there were three huge PI calls, maybe three or four. I remember three of them. The two that were called on Seattle against Dallas, I thought were iffy. Like, I don't know if they were necessarily necessary. The one against Stephon Gilmore, I thought was obvious pass interference, and that was okay, but it's just not fun to watch a game where there's just constant flags. But in return of so many flags, there was no punts. So at least it wasn't like a highly penalized game and the score was like 9-6. There was 0 punts in the entire game by either team. There was 76 combined points. It was an entertaining game just as a fan of offense. Well, let's talk a little bit about like some of the specifics of the game. There's been a lot of talk about Deron Bland this year. He's had 5 pick sixes this season, which is an NFL record, and it's incredible. He was our nickelback. Once Diggs went down, he took his spot on the outside, and there was a lot of questions if he was going to be able to sustain that spot and play up to his level. And so far he has been. He's been really solid this season. My worry with him is that as he's gotten more attention for these interceptions and as he set that record, he has appeared to slip a little bit in his coverage and is showing resemblance of like that Diggs season where he got 1 million picks but was giving up more yards than anyone else in the league. And as a fan, like, the interceptions are fun, but I much rather just have a lockdown, shutdown corner that the receivers just don't catch balls. He gave up one of the first plays of the game. DK Metcalf had like a 75-yard touchdown on a slant route, and they were targeting him all game and they were succeeding in those targets. He did get another pick. He got his 6th interception of the season. It wasn't a pick 6, but it honestly like is starting to actually worry me when he gets interceptions, because I don't want him to chase those like I felt Diggs was doing. Like, I want him to just be a good corner and to jump on the opportunities when they arise, but don't play for the picks. Like, we don't need the turnovers. Our offense is electric this season. We just need to get stops, and the high risk versus high reward is not worth it right now when we can score on offense pretty much whenever we want. Just got to get stops. So the defense just needs to hold them. Okay, and a quick little side note about Seattle. I swear those uniforms. Okay, so there's some teams that have uniforms, they're alternate uniforms, that are so far and above their regular unis. I think that there just needs to be like a countrywide or worldwide vote. Like, let's swap these right here, because those gray or silver helmets they're wearing, those uniforms are so sleek. They're beautiful to look at. And their current uniforms, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't like the neon green. I know that's a tangent, but there's just like, okay, for example, so Dallas, we have all-time classic, iconic Cowboys jerseys. They've been the same for ever. We have those white helmets that I love. I really enjoy those. And they're very, very cool. I think they are slightly cooler than our regular unis, but they're not overwhelmingly better. So I'm okay with occasionally pulling those out and being excited about them. But then you go and they're like, no, some of these are just better. Like Seattle's unis they wore on Thursday Night Football, those should be permanent. That needs to be addressed. Like that is just better. That's better. I love those. But that's beside the point. So Gino in this game honestly looked really good. He had a couple of like off balance, almost like fadeaway type throws that he really played well. He threw a lot of good balls and he obviously scored a lot of points. They had 35 points. He had over 330 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. He was looking great and DK Metcalf looked incredible. Their offense was moving and that's a concern for our defense. It's concerning that, Seattle has been good this year and they've obviously hung around the 500 mark with their record, but to give up 400, I think we gave up 400 or 411 total offensive yards. That's not that great. And it's a game that I was really excited about our offense. It's fun to see how often and how quick we can score and the different ways in which we can do it. CeeDee Lamb has continued to be one of the best receivers in the league this year, by far the best season of his career. Dak is playing at another level right now. Pollard has not yet been incredible, but this is the first game of the season where I saw a few runs that really mattered and he really fought for some extra yards and he got some big first downs, even though it wasn't a huge game yardage wise. I finally, it felt like saw some life in him and it really, really helped our team. But it's hard to be excited about our good offensive game with 400 plus yards when the other team was still right there at the end and had just as many yards as us and just as many touchdown passes. And we shouldn't let a team like that hang around. I knew we had to win, but I also thought it was important to make a statement and get a statement win. And we just didn't do that. In fact, we almost lost. And it does have me feeling a little queasy going into next month. The biggest play of the game was Seattle was up 35-30. They were on Dallas's 45-yard line. It was 4th and 1. And there was only like 7 minutes left. And they were going for it. And, if they get that, now they're up 5. The clock winds down even more. If they get a field goal, they're up 8. If they score a touchdown, that's almost a wrap. And DeMarcus Lawrence got a huge tackle for loss on the run that they tried to convert. And immediately following that, we drove down and scored a touchdown, took the lead by 3 after a 2-point conversion, and then, battled it out at the end. But that to me was the biggest play of the game. Like if they convert that 4th down, I think the end looks a lot different. And just going back to Dak, he has been playing really at a high level. And I know that there's been a lot of attention on him. There always will be. There always has been. He's the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. But he's objectively playing good football right now, like legitimately good football. And now he's at the top of the MVP conversation. And I believe he's the favorite in Vegas right now. And I'll just say this, like there's not a very obvious MVP candidate this season. I think right now it's Dak, Brock Purdy, and Jalen Hurts at the top, followed closely by like Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. And there's just not any of those that you're like, he for sure is going to get it. And although Brock Purdy's been playing really well, he often is discounted a little bit because of the quality of his team, which I don't think is fair, but it happens. And the rest of their schedule is fairly easy. They play Baltimore, and I don't know if they play another good team outside of that. They're probably going to win most likely the rest of their games, but none of those games are going to feel like super important or like big games for them. And so I don't know if that is going to be a good advantage for him in the MVP conversation. Whereas Dak, December is going to either win or lose the MVP race, and it's either going to make or break my confidence as a playoff team. Like if we go into December, and I've said this before, but if we go into December and we go 3-1, and one of those wins has to be Philly. We have to beat Philly on Sunday night. It's at home. They already beat us this year. Big game for the division. It's a big game for the playoffs. And it's a big game for our confidence. Like that has to be one of the 3 wins. But if they can go 3-1 against those 4 Buffalo, Miami, Philly, Detroit, those 4 good teams, and Dak plays well, I think he's got the MVP in the bag. I think those games are going to be so important. They're going to be very good teams. They're going to be very close games. And if he pulls it off while playing well, I think he's got the MVP wrapped up. Now, if we go in there and go 1-3 or even maybe 2-2, like I will feel hopeless almost about the playoffs. I will feel so down because again, the whole season it's been only beats bad teams, can't beat the good ones. We have a really good opportunity. And I keep saying I know I'm not on the team. We know how how fans talk, okay? I know I'm not in the Cowboys. I've been a fan my whole life. I'm going to say we, and I'm not going to be sorry about it. But man, December is so big for so many reasons for this team. Confidence in themselves as a team, playing against good playoff teams. Confidence as Dak, possibly winning or competing at least very closely for an MVP. And confidence for me personally as a fan that is just so nervous about how this is going to go, because I've just been scarred like my entire life. And so I just, me personally, I just feel like it's going to be a terrible month, and that does not excite me. But I mean, talk to me at Christmas. I'm either going to be on literal cloud nine thinking that we, for the first time in my actual life, have a shot at the Super Bowl, or I'll be just not looking for the playoffs at all, like zero, and just dreading another 30-point loss to the Niners and losing them in the playoffs for like 3 years in a row. And I can't even talk about it. It's going to drive me nuts if we can't beat some of these teams. We've got to have a good December. And if Dak wins MVP, that would be one of the biggest accomplishments I've seen as a Cowboys fan in my life. Like that would be awesome. I would be so happy for him. And I would feel great about heading into the playoffs. So anyways, that's a little bit of rambling, and it's a little bit less structured than my other like Pick'ems videos, but I think it will be fun to kind of come on here hopefully every week and just give my little insight as just a personal fan, not any like professional analysis, but just how I'm feeling about our team, about our players, and where we're heading. And these might be a lot of fun in December for me, or they might be a lot of fun for you when we go 0-4 and fall apart. So I don't know. We'll see. But thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate everyone that watches and subscribes to my channel. It means the world to me. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.